Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Michael Pokioz here. I've teamed up with TCG Science on Instagram once again to give you a bit of an insight into some differences between grading, percentage and prices on PSA 9s versus PSA 10s. Now, the reason for this and how it relates to Pokemon card investing is I suppose so many people have a bit of a short-minded approach when it comes to Pokemon investing. They think, okay, there's two ways you can make money from investing in Pokemon cards. One is you buy a sealed product, whether it's an ETB, a 3-pack blister, a booster box, etc. Sit it, let it mature, marinate, which is a word we all like to use, and appreciate in value over time, and then essentially sell it for more than what you bought it for and make money. So capital gains. The other thing people see or think about is maybe buying a single and letting that appreciate over time, or buying a graded single and let that appreciate over time. Same thing, sell it in the future, make money, profit off it, and gain some capital gains. There are more ways that you can make money investing in Pokemon cards than doing just that. And one of them is buying cards for the grade. Now, this can be risky, and this is not something I do. Other people do it, but it's not something I do. Before we jump into that tactic really quickly, if you haven't subscribed, please do so. And if you want to become a channel member, that would be greatly appreciated. You just do so from the home screen. And once you remember, you can shoot me any investment-related email, and I'll get back to you in a timely manner. Hey, I think we're up to over 13,000 subscribers now, so thanks so much, everyone. Let's keep growing and keep motoring along. Anyway, onto the strategy at hand. So the sort of risk it for the grade strategy is something that can make money. If you get it right or you get lucky, then it makes money. So generally, what you do is you might buy, and I'm just plucking Magikarp out of the air, and I'll actually leave this diagram up on the screen now because we'll talk about it in a second. These are Scarlet and Violet Sword and Shield cards, differences between PSA 9 and PSA 10 price, and the percentage increase between the PSA 9 and PSA 10 price. So let's just pick on the Magikarp for a while, because that seems to have been the sort of the flavor of the month. It's the most expensive Sword and Shield, Scarlet and Violet, sorry, I'm still stuck in Sword and Shield, the most expensive Scarlet and Violet PSA 10 so far. So what's it go for now? $679. But it's difficult to grade a 10. So the strategy is you might buy 20 mint raw copies of this. You might examine them. You might get close-up photos of centering, edges, surface, corners as well. Check if there's any fine little nicks or scratches. And if there's not, you might go, okay, well, this has a chance of grading 10. So you might buy, I'm just plucking a number out there, but you might buy 20 of them. And if it so happens that, 15 return a 9, 3 return an 8, and 2 return a 10, on the 8s and 9s, you've probably just broke even with grading costs involved. But in the 10s, we're talking, if it shows up on this diagram here, 369% increase on a 9 versus a 10. So you might make $400 or $500 per card doing that. So it could be a bit of a money-making exercise. You've bought 20, maybe 3 of them grade a 10. Maybe you get really lucky. Then you make $400 or $500 per card. So you're talking, $1,200 to $1,500 made from that effort of sending 20 Magikarps off to get graded. Now, I don't do that personally. It's hard for me. I don't have, working a full-time job. Life gets in the way. It's busy. I like the strategy of really focusing and honing in on the data when it comes to sealed product, and buying the ones that I think will appreciate over time, and just watching it rise up. And if you don't have the collector app, that's a really cool app for tracking that. And just watching it day on day or week on week or month on month and go, wow, this box is up to this price now, or this box is up to this price now. And just going, wow, the collection's grown from this value to that value because so many of those boxes inside the collection have gone up in value. So that's mostly what I do. However, this isn't a bad strategy. Now, when it comes to grading a 9 versus a 10, just so you know, generally, if it's rarer, older, from a bad print run era, like maybe XY era, for argument's sake, generally the older it is, the harder it is to grade. And a PSA 10 on a really hard to grade card, and I know I'm talking layman's terms here, and it's so basic that most of you guys watching this probably already know it, but the harder it is to grade a 10, generally the higher price it demands as a 10. The best example is, let's just pluck some numbers out there, but say there was 1,000 graded copies of the card, 700 of those were a 1 to an 8, 250 of those were a 9, and 50 of those were a 10. The ratio between the 10 and the 9, really low PSA 10 population, and massive percentage of other populations makes this card really hard to grade, and its PSA 10 price will command a massive price. That's why most modern cards, and just so you know, like Sword and Shield for argument's sake, average of 60% return rate of 10s across the whole Sword and Shield era, or just under. It might be like 58%, but only about 35 to 40% on Scarlet and Violet. So it seems print quality's dropped down a little bit for Scarlet and Violet. So if you're looking at cards like Espeon VMAX, Gengar VMAX, you know, the top chase cards from Sword and Shield, Giratina V Alt Art, those cards have about a 58% chance of returning as a 10. Now, that's why there's not a huge difference, like thousands of percents, between its PSA 9 copy and its PSA 10 copy. Whereas we look at some vintage cards, which I'm going to go through a massive list of 10 of them here in a second, you'll see some massive gains between a 9 and a 10. So that's what I wanted to showcase you now, just as a bit of fun more than anything. Starting with, this is 10 absolutely massive discrepancies between a 9 and a 10. Promo, HR from Heart Gold Soul Silver, Ho-Oh, $56 as a 9 and $1,825 as a PSA 10. Gaining this 3,132% from a 9 to a 10. Next one I wanted to show you is Platinum's Arceus Level X, $44 through to $1,437 as a PSA 10. That's 3,167%. Next one I wanted to show, Terracon EX from Black and White era, $55 as a PSA 9 through to $1,892 as a PSA 10. 3,329%. Now, the hard thing about these, and I do want to make this point very clear, is these prices, it's really, really hard to knuckle down exact PSA 10 prices for a lot of vintage cards. Reason why? Not many of them come on the market all that much. If you look at a card like Umbreon VMAX or Gengar VMAX from Sword and Shield era, multiple copies are changing hands each week. In some cases, multiple copies are changing hands each day. So you get this really solid price point where it's like, okay, this is where it is. If you want an Umbreon VMAX PSA 10, this is what you've got to pay. It's really hard with vintage cards that might only come on the market once every few years, or once a year, or once every quarter, or once every 6 months. It's really hard to knuckle it. They fluctuate so much. So I just wanted to make that clear that these prices aren't set in stone. They're an estimate. The next one I want to show is Slow King from Neo. Unlimited, $115 as a PSA 9, $4,397 as a PSA 10, 3,725% increase. In case you didn't know, from a lot of vintage cards, the higher the percentage of holo pattern versus Pokemon, that is, if the Pokemon's not big and there's heaps of holo, like Neo from Lugia from Neo series, which we'll get to in a second, or say Blaine's Moltres from Gym series, it's really, really hard to grade a 10 because you've got so much holo surface. So easy to get print lines, so easy to get little fine scratches on it, particularly if they're being pulled from, you know, packs that are 25 years old. Like, of course, it's going to be hard to grade a 10 in that scenario. Next one is Mesprit Level X from Diamond and Pearl era, $109 PSA 9, $4,400 as a PSA 10, 3,931% increase. Here's another one, Smeargle from Neo, $55 as a PSA 9, $2,270 as a PSA 10, 4,028% increase. Imagine sending that off. You bought yourself a nice mint raw copy, $55, and it grades a 10, 4,000% increase. That'd be crazy, wouldn't it? This must be from Secret Wonders, this Mew, Diamond and Pearl era, $150 PSA 9, $6,477 PSA 10, 4,214% increase. Lugia, the one I was mentioning, the big dog. Now, this went for a ridiculous price throughout COVID. I can't remember exactly what it was. Was it like 137 or 145 grand? Something ridiculous. $500 as a PSA 9, $32,100 as a PSA 10, 6,320% increase. The Torterra Level X from, again, must be another Diamond and Pearl era card, $155 PSA 9, 12,500 PSA 10. 7,913% increase. And what's this? E-Series, isn't it? Expedition base set. Skarmory, $123 as a PSA 9, 13,125 as a PSA 10. That's a 10,511% increase. Hey, they were just a little bit of a showcase of some crazy older cards that have massive discrepancies between PSA 9 and PSA 10. Now, a lot of the modern cards that have that massive discrepancy, like the best one being the Magikarp, $145 through to $679, which is 369% difference. And I'll bring that graphic up again because we see it with the Raichu, 440% difference, and we see it with Tyranitar from Paldea Evolved at 363% difference. Excuse me, my throat's a bit ticklish tonight. But the reason we see that massive difference is all about print quality. That's all it is. Those cards are hard to grade proportionally as a 10 compared to a 9 or a lower value. That's why. You know, centering is not great in Scarlet and Violet. Print quality is not great in Scarlet and Violet. In fact, it's dropped down a little bit from Sword and Shield era, like I mentioned, with a 58% chance of a 10 in Sword and Shield era and what seems to be about a 35 to 40% PSA 10 return rate in Scarlet and Violet. That's why these cards command such a high price. That Magikarp, last I checked, it was around 600-ish, 700-ish PSA 10 copies. That's a very low pop for a very modern, big hitting chase card. Anyway, a little bit of a change of pace today on a different way to make money off Pokemon cards when it comes to investing. I'm Michael. This is PokeOz. Catch everyone next time.